Hi, everybody. This week's topic is the power of words. It's Tuesday, and I'll start by saying that I've always been very careful with how I word things, no matter what, and I mean like everything. When it comes to talking to people, when it comes to writing things, when it comes to the way I hold conversations, because I've always felt that words are very powerful. You know, you have this saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. And when I heard that when I was little, I was like, whatever. Swords stabby people. You stab people with swords. You can stab people with pens, but there's whatever. But when I got older, and when you get those first things that are hurtful said to you, you realize then what that saying is. And so in magic, the way that you choose your words absolutely have an effect on your working. And whether you're carefully constructing a ritual or you are doing a spell for somebody, you always want to be very, very careful with how you word things, because you don't want things brought to you or sent away from you in a way that's going to get you the result that you initially asked for in a small way, but leave you with a result that's something that's really hard to live with because you did not word things carefully. I've always kind of thought that when you're doing money spells and things that you need to be very careful, because while, getting a second job offered to you or something when you do a money spell is a great way to say that yes, your spell was successful. Having someone pass away and leave you inheritance is one of those things where it's like, yes, it helped, but you ended up with something worse. And I'm not saying that you should blame yourself for that, but you put that energy out there, and be careful with how you word things, because certain things could take effect that you may not be able to deal with, or you may not be ready for. When you're angry is another thing. When I'm angry, my magic, I feel like it's at its peak. Or if I'm upset, I won't even say angry, but if my emotions are really high, that is when I'm extra careful, because you don't want to say anything or send something out into the universe with this hardcore intent when you are angry for something that you truly do not want, because you put that out there, and next thing you know, what you said when you were upset or hurt comes back, and you're like, oh my God, not exactly what I wanted. I know I said it, but I was angry, and I've had that happen, to me before. And it's, I do have a temper, much less these days than I did maybe 10 years ago. But when I would put that out there, I had to be very careful. And I remember there were certain times where I would just be so angry, and I'd say something, and my husband would be like, shh, like, calm down a minute before you say anything, because you're projecting a lot out there. And I always kind of shrugged him off, and then you do have circumstances where you're like, maybe he was right, because like I said, I went through some hardcore stuff in my life to where I wasn't happy and I wasn't in a good mindset. And doing magic when you're like that is difficult, because you're not in the right headspace for it, and it leads more, it gives the ability for it to cause more mishaps than help. And so the same thing happens with your words when you're upset, or your emotions are high for whatever reason, whether it be you're upset or you're happy, or when your emotions are at a peak, you do still have to be careful. You want to use that energy, but you don't want to use that energy to shoot off the mouth in a way that you don't want to. Your words are probably your most powerful tool, in my opinion, because that is what sets forth your intention. That's what sets forth everything into motion. You can have candles, you can have all these things, tarot cards, and all these things to set your spell up. But if you do not have the correct intention and the words don't come out correctly, it's going to screw everything up. It doesn't matter whether you light 4 different candles for the same purpose. If something comes out of your mouth wrong, it can mess up the entire spell. It can mess up the entire intent of what it is that you're trying to do. So absolutely be careful with your words. Think through them. I like to write my spells down, really sit them in front of me for a little while, go over them, make sure that it covers what I want to cover, but it doesn't possibly, it's not open-ended. It's exactly what it is that I want, in a way that doesn't leave room for any surprises, at least for me. And then, once it's written, because I do try to write the spells a couple days before I do them, I will sleep on it and wake up and then look at it again with a fresh outlook to make sure that everything is written the way I want to write it, because I want to send that out there in a way that is positive or to my intent, to have it be exactly what I want. It doesn't mean that I still don't make mistakes. I still make mistakes all the time, but I'm better at it now than I was when I was 20. I remember, for instance, I did a spell when my grandmother was sick. She had cancer, and she was had weeks, and I remember my mother telling me that she needed me to be her rock, because we were going to have to take care of her mom and my grandma, and I couldn't fall apart. Well, I was raised with my grandmother, so when my mother tells me, I need you there for me, I need you to be strong for me because I can't do this without you, I set a spell in motion for inner strength to get me through that. The problem with that was I was so desperate to do exactly what I needed to do for my mother that I did not word that spell correctly, and I am still, to this day, fighting the effects of that spell, because the intention that I put out there was I didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to experience that hurt. And while absolutely it's painful and my heart broke, and I did cry when she passed away, I have a really hard time crying now. It's not that I don't feel that sadness. I almost feel like my body chokes it back. Like I will have it, it's there, it's right there, and I start that sob and it shuts right off. And it's done that for years. And it started after that spell, because I remember when I first found out that grandma was sick, I went out in the hallway and just bawled. And when we went downstairs and we were talking about this as a family, I was in tears. I was, sobbing. And that was when mom, kind of pulled me to the side. We were talking about what we were going to do and what she needed from me. And then, so I went home and pulled out an orange candle and did all this and wrote a very quick spell that was not well thought out at all. And from that point forward, I've had a really hard time ever experiencing my emotions, which is why I have a water altar, because my emotions are never balanced. I'm still working on it. I'm working through it. I'm trying to work through it without spell work, like in a full out spell kind of way. I'm doing a more spiritual meditation type thing to get me past this. But that is one mishap that I absolutely still have the effects of, because I did not word a spell correctly. If you have any questions, if you have any stories of your own, I'd love to hear them. Until next week, though, blessed be.